talking about Substack today.
Yeah, Substack is like on everybody's minds and it's rolling off everyone's tongues everywhere. Everyone's like, I'm starting a Substack.
I'm
I'm
starting.
thinking about a Substack. Should I blog on Substack? Yeah.
I actually read quite a lot of Substacks.
Oh, do you? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I don't.
Um, Only because some of my favorite people, in the political but also the like history space
Yep, content creators.
have Substacks, and that's, when TikTok went away for 24 hours and then came back, it seemed like everyone
A
created a
lot of people
Substack
went
on
over
that
there. Yeah.
day.
Which is so funny because
They,
the platforms could not be different. It could
yeah.
not be more different, but yeah.
They seem to have like maybe like prior to with the warnings that TikTok was going to go away, they started really leaning hard into creating Substacks. So I've been
Yeah.
hearing this for a while. I've probably been a reader of Substacks for 2 years.
hmm
Um, it's just, it's a platform that a lot of people are talking about. So we thought we would talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yep. Yeah. Let's
Where
talk
should we
about it.
start?
Well, I will start by saying that I see it through a certain lens, of course.
Yeah.
I think anytime like there's a word, like we associate it with different things. So like when I say Substack to you, you think about those creators that you love following on Substack and reading about and what we're reading content from. When I think Substack, I think about my students inside of high leverage content and also people who are in my audience but haven't come into high leverage content yet, coaches and service providers whose overall goal with any content that they're creating is to help them get clients.
Hmm.
I hear them saying like, "Oh, maybe I'll start a Substack. Like maybe that's what I should do." So I see it through the lens of like, does that make sense for coaches and service providers, the people in my audience, if their goal with their content, like I said, is to get clients. So I think of it that way.
Hmm.
Um, Overall, I would say that I generally have a like an approach to it where I'm like, I think for most people who are asking me, should I start a Substack?
Yeah.
After asking some questions of them in terms of what their goals are and what they're doing now and whether this where a Substack would fit into their ecosystem, things like that. I usually end up saying like, okay, well, I think I would advise against it, and here's why.
Hmm.
But I'm not like against the platform. Like I think it's definitely a very cool platform, and I can see it working for some people, again, depending on their goals of their marketing. So I think of it from a marketing perspective, obviously. And yeah, there's just like a few considerations that I think about when I'm sort of like helping people assess whether it would be a good tool for them.
Hmm.
But I would say overall, my thought process is guided by this idea that I encourage my students to think about Substack more like almost like a social media platform. Not in the sense that like think about it that way, like that's the kind of content you're post,
Yeah.
but more like think about it as that in your ecosystem. So at a very high level, I think about marketing platforms when people say like, "Oh, where should I show up online?" When I say
Mhm.
people, I mean coaches and service providers who want clients. Um, I think about like, okay, you need one long form platform where you do your long form content, and you need one or two outposts, which are going to be like social media platforms or somewhere
Yeah.
where you're getting more visibility. And then the third thing is email marketing. And so where a Substack fits into that for me, it's not going to be your blog platform. It
Yeah.
actually would be one of those one or two social media platforms.
Yeah.
And I'm using social media the same way we think about Pinterest as like social media. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't work like social media, but it's an outpost. It's a place where you're getting more visible. It's not
Yeah.
a platform you own. So when my students ask me this question, for me, it comes down to like, okay, can this be one of your like outposts?
Yep.
And so it comes down to the same questions that we ask our clients and students and anyone who wants advice from us that that we're in a position to help.
Yeah.
Um, it's the same question. It's the same questions you think about when you think, should I be on Pinterest? Should I be on Instagram? Should I be on LinkedIn? It's like thinking about those series of questions. Like, are your people there? Do they like to consume content like that? How are you going to use it? How are you going to use it to drive sales and traffic back to where you need to drive it, things like that, rather than should this be my blog platform, right? So that's kind
Yeah.
of like how I think about it. What about you?
So I pretty much think about it as a newsletter platform with a bonus social media component.
Hmm.
it's really not meant to be a blog. I mean, if you think about it from the like our old days of blogging where we had like Blogger and people could subscribe to your RSS feed,
Hmm.
it's like that. Even though you can put your own domain on there and you can, hide the heather at substack.com URL and make it, heatherferris.com if I wanted to. Like I could make that the face of my
I didn't know it could do that, and now it makes a lot
website.
of sense that people, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
But I
I didn't
still
know.
see it as a newsletter because you're still at the end of the day collecting subscriber email addresses.
Yep.
And the way that you would then be connecting with them if you were blogging on there would be they would be getting emails in their inbox. So then like how do we monetize that? Well, if you are using the monetization on platform, then you can obviously monetize through Substack. But again, it feels like a newsletter to me and not a blog.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, so
So,
there's a few different things we're talking about. Let's think about this from the perspective of like content strategy wise. To you, it seems like more of a newsletter. So
mhm,
you'd think about it more as like, okay, what am I going to write? It's going to be more of like a newsletter as opposed to like an evergreen blog strategy.
yeah.
And then you're also talking about different monetization methods. So for anyone who's like really new to Substack, let's talk about that for a second.
Yep.
We're used to doing this because we used to run rooms on Clubhouse about how to monetize Pinterest, right? And we'd talk
Yeah.
about 8 ways that you can make money on Pinterest. Same concept here. Basically, it's like any platform, there's going to be different ways to monetize.
Yep.
So the one that people think of the most, just like they think of like YouTube as like monetization on YouTube, is on platform monetization. So do you have a quick idea of how that works? I do,
Yes.
but I feel like you know better. So give us a quick idea of how the on platform monetization can work on Substack.
So Substack does not make money unless you have subscriptions. It's free to use, it's free to start. There's no startup fees. So you can quite literally just go on Substack today and create a Substack and start writing and never
Mhm,
charge your readers a dime. Or if you want to charge your readers, you get to set the rate.
mhm.
For example, one of my favorite American history historians charges $50 a year for her Substack. It's so affordable. It literally just probably pays for her coffee that she consumes.
Yep.
Um, you get to set the rate. The average rates are anywhere from $5 a month to $15 a month, is what I have seen.
Yep.
I've paid $6 a month for some Substacks. I've paid $15 a month for some Substacks, and then annual plans as well. So you get to set the rate, and people get to choose monthly or yearly terms.
Yep.
And then Substack takes 10% off the top for their payment, and then you also pay the processing fees. So Substack takes 10%, Stripe takes 2.9 plus the 25 cents or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And then there's also another fee that's charged, and it's I think their terms of service I read this morning, it's about 70 cents for every recurring charge you pay every time someone's charge goes through again. So it's 10% plus 70 cents, 2.9% plus the 25 cents or whatever for Stripe. So there's two hands in your monetization bucket there, and that's how those companies
Which
stay
is
in
normal.
business and continue
Mhm.
providing a service, right?
Yep.
Those are the monetization methods on Substack. Now you can obviously also monetize off Substack, which we can talk about later.
Right. Yeah, so like we used to run rooms about how to monetize Pinterest, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, there's the creator rewards program, which went away eventually, but there's the you can grow your email list and then sell to your email list. You can sell e-commerce products, right? Like
Yeah.
there's all these different things, and really what those come down to is those are all business models.
Hmm.
And what I see happen over and over and over with my students and clients who are coaches and service providers primarily, they think of themselves primarily as a coach or service provider, meaning that they are looking to sign clients.
Yep.
Their offers are usually a little higher ticket just because of the nature of them, because they're working with people directly. Not always one-to-one. Sometimes it's like a group coaching program, but it's not like a digital product necessarily. And so, like, what happens is they come into this like online world
Hmm.
and they get confused about what their monetization method is, and they try to monetize in multiple ways all at once.
Yeah.
So for people on Pinterest, that looked one way. For people on YouTube, it looks another way. It's like, Do you want to create content that's going to get people on your email list and get them into your coaching offers? Or do you want to create content that's going to drive, more views on YouTube so that you can monetize on YouTube? When people are just getting started in their business, it's really hard to do all those things at once because
Mhm.
you're kind of like trying to serve different purposes at once, and your content strategy is going to be different if you're trying to get people on your email list and into your coaching programs versus if you're trying to get people watching your YouTube videos a lot to make, the monetization. I will pause for a second and acknowledge that you, Heather, who've been in
Mhm.
business for a decade, you have
Most.
layered, yeah, you've layered in different monetization methods, but it took you, you've done sort of like one at a time. You didn't just come onto the scene 10 years ago and immediately start monetizing in all the
I
ways.
tried.
You've added them in, right? But so a lot of my people who are beginners, this is the same thing happening I see with Substack, which is they're getting distracted and they're thinking, well, maybe I will charge people $5 a month for my Substack. And then that's fine. Like maybe you do that.
Mhm.
But how many $5 per month is it going to take for you to have that be a consistent stream of income that's going to be enough for you?
Yeah.
And how many hours is that going to take away from what you already decided your business model is, which is that you want to have coaching clients in a one-to-one container or a group coaching program. So for me, I just feel like it comes down to like, is this a way to grow your business and get clients, or is this another like kind of distraction or shiny object? And although you can tell just from the way I'm talking about it, and also from my picture on the on the thumbnail of this YouTube video, that usually I feel like it might kind of be like another distraction for
Yeah.
people. It's not always. There may be situations where it could work really well. And so one thing I would say is like if a student comes to me and they're like, I don't like Instagram, I don't like LinkedIn, I don't like any of these things. I'm a writer, I love writing. I
Hmm.
might say to them, well, then maybe Substack is good for you, but it should be a place where you're getting visibility and you're getting people, essentially, your goal with your content is to fascinate them and get them to want to learn more from you
Hmm.
so that they will go to your website and get on your email list, or they will join a low ticket offer that could lead into a high ticket offer, or they will just follow you for a while and then finally get ready and join your high ticket offer, right? The the challenge with that comes into the terms of service on Substack, which we'll talk about in a little while, because I spotted something on those terms of service that throws a little bit of a monkey wrench in that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of like where I come from on it. Like, is this really something that is going to give you enough ROI on the time that you have to invest in it and serve your business model? Um, so for me, generally speaking, I feel like that ends up being, a no, but that doesn't mean that that's the answer for everybody. There may be some people who either A, want to use it as one of their visibility platforms, like a social media platform, but it's not going to substitute for their blog on their own website. Or B, there could be people who just don't have the same, they're not coaches or service providers. They just want to make money by writing content. And if that's the case, they become more of a content creator model where they're just, their goal in life is to get people to subscribe to their $5 a month, or $20 a month Substack. So
Yeah. So I, okay, yes. Okay, back to, sorry, I went and Googled Substack terms of service. I was trying to find what you were talking about in chat, and then I got
I
distracted.
can read it to you. I dropped it in the WhatsApp chat too.
That's all right. So, okay, in all things we usually agree on, and this is one of those things I usually agree on, that people are probably going to be using it as a means to generate another income when I would say if you were going to have a blog on your own website and then a Substack to collect newsletter subscribers, because maybe you don't have, let's just play devil's
Mhm, mhm.
advocate here. Maybe you don't have $25 a month to sign up for ConvertKit to collect email addresses and use a traditional email service provider. Maybe you just want to use Substack to collect those email addresses. You do have the ability to export your lists and move them elsewhere later on if you want. The intellectual property is all of yours. The copyright of any of your content you put on the platform is all yours. So within that terms of service, you are protected there. But let's say you want to use Substack to grow your newsletter. I would say in the beginning, if you are blogging somewhere else and you want to use Substack for your newsletter, you should just use it for that. And you shouldn't try to monetize the Substack itself until you grow an audience. Because if you if you wall it all off from the beginning, I think you're missing out on the potential of what Substack could be.
Right, because then it's
Because
no longer a visibility platform because people can't
right,
see it unless they pay. Right.
right. And you
Good
have the
point.
ability, and a lot of creators, and this is what I've experienced as a Substack consumer, you have the ability to create free content and paid content. So you can wall off certain content if you want. You can turn off comments and make them only available for subscribers. That's what my favorite historian does, actually. The only
Hmm.
way you get access to comments is if you subscribe. So then you can engage in the comment section with other subscribers. But otherwise, her thing is free to read for everybody,
Hmm.
which is that would be typical fashion for a historian. They would want people to be able to read their stuff, right?
Right, right.
So I think if you are going to go this route of using Substack, you should do the free method in the beginning because you want to build an audience. And then later on, if you want to add in a paid tier, you can do that.
Hmm.
But I don't think that you should try to monetize because the monetization strategies there, the algorithms there, it's all different
Hmm.
than what we're typically concerning ourselves with. Whereas I have my blog, I have my YouTube channel, we're on it right now, and I have my newsletter, my email list. I get to talk to those people anytime I want. I go straight to their inbox, which you can do with Substack, but those people willingly signed up for free because they're newsletter subscribers and that's what they're expecting. They're expecting me to communicate with them via email, but they're not expecting it to be walled off. So, in this world that we are operating in, what you might end up encountering is some friction when it comes to creating a paid Substack when your readers are not accustomed to that.
Hmm.
They're less likely to then sign up and convert and become paid readers because they don't know who you are.
Hmm.
That's why they're signing up for your email list.
Hmm.
Get to know you.
Yeah.
I'm never going to pay for someone's email list the second that I meet them because I don't trust them.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and
Sorry, that was
there's
a long
something to
way
be
around.
said for like this sort of backlash that our culture has been experiencing on subscriptions. There's been like in the last 5 or 6 years, it's like the Netflix effect.
Yeah,
You always hear people say like, "Oh, I went through all my subscriptions this week and I was spending like, $300 a month on things that I'm not even using."
I've
And so
canceled so
because,
many.
yeah, and so because we're hearing about that a lot and a lot of us are experiencing it or have friends that are experiencing it,
Mhm.
consumers are even more, there's more
Aware.
friction right now. The consumers are less likely to hit that subscribe with money button than they even were a couple years ago or 5 years ago because there's this like pendulum swinging in this direction. So to your point, you really have to like grow some like, know, and trust before someone's willing to plop down $15 a month or even $5 a month or something like that. Whereas 5 years ago, somebody might have like thought like, oh, $5 a month is nothing. These days, like we have this narrative in our head, which is true, that like all those $5 add up, and then all of a sudden you have $300 in subscriptions that you're never using, and
Honestly, yeah.
so there's that kind of like cultural phenomenon that's going on too that I think is working against you a little bit when it comes to trying to have a subscription-based thing when you haven't grown an audience that already knows and likes and trusts you.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things you said that I want to kind of talk about a little bit. One of them is I just want to call this out because people who are listening might be thinking this. We're collecting emails on Substack and we
Right.
can download them and take them with us. But I don't think it's kosher. And we're not lawyers, just to say this out there. I happen to be married to one, but that doesn't make me a lawyer or make me someone who's giving you legal advice.
His specialty
Um,
is not a content or online anything.
right? And I am a separate human from him. But I don't think it's okay to take your Substack list and upload it to your ConvertKit in the future or to your active campaign. How do you
Yeah,
interpret
no,
that?
that's totally
You
fine.
would,
Yes,
you can
you
do
can.
it?
It's totally fine. That was
Hmm.
part of what I read in their terms of service this morning. You can
So
even
in,
bring other email lists to Substack if you want and import
oh,
them.
oh, I'm sure they're happy to have you bring other email lists to Substack. But do you think that, again, we're not lawyers, but do you think that a like hand spam lawyer would say it's okay to be taking people who subscribed on our Substacks for a newsletter and adding them to,
A convert kit later?
yeah, I think that's okay.
I think it would be fine.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm. I
Okay.
think, I mean, as long as you're doing all of this above board and you're sending them through like a kit situation where, or a mail or light or active campaign where they have the option to sign, unsubscribe.
Like a double opt-in, or do you just mean like
No, not
unsubscribe?
even a double opt-in, just
Okay.
like you have an unsubscribe link and you're letting them know who you are and how they got there. I mean, this happens all the time with with like course platforms, people taking their course members from one platform to another, and they just Tarzan K did it last week. I just got a new
Hmm.
login to her courses that I have access to.
Yep.
And I actually didn't know who the hell it was. I was like, who is this? Why am I
Mm,
getting
yeah.
this email? So I clicked and like ended up going through like 3 or 4 different pages until I figured out, oh, it's Tarzan K. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know who she is. Okay. Yeah, I bought that course. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Now I
I'm
know
okay
why.
getting this from
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think as long as you're doing your due diligence and you are abiding by can spam, I think it's fine.
Okay.
According to Substack's terms of service, it seems to be.
Okay. Yeah. And those are, two different things. You've got Substack's terms of service, but also like just laws that we have to
Yeah.
follow when it comes to email marketing. Okay, that's interesting. So you've shifted my perspective a little bit on it. Not that I'm going to say like, oh my God, it's got to be for everyone now, but I'd be
Yeah.
even maybe a little bit more likely to say to a student, if a student comes to me and says, I love writing, I don't want to be on Instagram. What do you think about having my blog or my podcast as my main, like, or a YouTube channel as my main long form content platform, and then having my like social media or visibility channel that I
Hmm.
choose in your Jana's three-prong kind of approach be Substack, and then I also do my own email marketing. If Substack was like a good fit for them in terms of how they like to create content, whether their people are there, things like that, I think I'd be more likely to think that's a good idea, knowing that maybe it's possible to have a system where basically I don't want people growing an email list on Substack and never moving that email list to a platform that they own because I would worry that something would happen and they would no longer be able to use Substack and they wouldn't have access to that list that they've been growing and that audience that they've been growing.
I think something else that people don't consider
Hmm.
is um, like, yes, you're going to land in the inbox because it's Substack and they've built trust with email service providers to deliver these emails straight to the inbox. I actually find it annoying as a Substack consumer to get the Substack emails in my inbox. I don't want them in my inbox. I want to use their app. They have an entire ecosystem. I can just
Hmm.
log onto it once a day at my preferred time. I can go through my favorite Substacks and read what
Hmm.
is available from that author.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Um,
think you're the only one. I think I've heard other people say that. And I remember in the beginning when I subscribed to a couple of Substacks, I was annoyed by that. And that's one of the reasons why I like unsubscribed and got away from it because I didn't want that in my email box. Yeah.
and I just find it really odd that I have this thought when I sign up for other people's email lists all the time and their emails come
Well,
right in my inbox. It's a
you know, here's what it is for me. I'll explain it. Substack to me, if I sign up for someone's Substack, I feel like I need to sit down for 7 minutes and read their most recent thing in order to get my value. And that's not really what I want in my email box. The things I want in my email box are like transactional. They're things that I have to like either just delete it or I have to do something quickly about it and then move on to the next email.
yeah.
I don't really want like my content that I like to sit back and, it's like, it's almost like if I wanted to read a book, like a fiction book,
Yeah.
and the author delivered a chapter to my email box every day. I'd be like, no, like, no, I don't want that. I just want to sit down when I want to and unplug and like read my book or read my Substacks. You know what I mean? So I think that's where my brain went with it, why I didn't like it. And maybe that's what's going on with your brain too, when it annoys you that you've got a Substack in your inbox. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's also just how I've trained myself to use their platform, and probably others are doing something really similar
Hmm.
because it's not like a traditional email newsletter situation. Like, that's the behavior of it. At least that's what it feels like to me,
Hmm.
that it's a newsletter. I don't think Substack actually intends for their platform to be a newsletter. I think they think it's something even different than that. I don't even know that they consider it a blog. I don't really know what they think it is.
Hmm. I think they've created their own thing. It's a Substack.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's different. It's different. And it's fascinating. I think that's one of the reasons why there's so much conversation about it. I want to read this from the terms of service.
Yeah, read it. I was just reading it in your WhatsApp.
Okay, marketing and promotion. Substack is intended for high quality editorial content, not conventional email marketing. We don't permit publications whose primary purpose is to advertise external products or services, drive traffic to third party sites, distribute offers and promotions, enhance search engine optimization. They're talking about like backlinks there, basically, or similar activities. Brands and commercial organizations publishing on Substack may be subject to additional verification. So here's my concern about that. I think some people would read that. Okay, again, I think of this through the lens of someone who's a coach who wants to grow their audience and sell
Mhm.
more spots in their group coaching program or their one-to-one coaching offer, or a service provider like a website designer who wants to grow their email list and get more high ticket clients who love bold websites or something like
Yeah.
that, right? My concern would be, even though someone might say, well, even though the terms of service say that, there's ways to get around it. Just don't be too salesy. Just talk about your expertise and people will find you online.
Yeah.
And that's okay, except for the fact that if you're growing an audience and an email list over there and you're growing your platform over there, and then one day someone decides that what you've been doing, because your intention really is to grow an audience to sell your offers to, or
Yeah.
to sell your offers right on the platform, right? Because if I was writing a blog about how to write a blog post fast, for example, I would write ideas about it, but I would also say, I teach this inside high leverage content. And here's a framework that I use that I teach. And if you want to learn more about it, you can enroll in this program. And if someone saw that and decided that, well, that's too promotional, that's a violation of we don't permit publications whose primary purpose is to advertise external products or services, for example, and they like decided that I wasn't allowed to be there anymore, they could take that platform that I've invested away from me. So
Yep.
that's where I worry. And then the other option we have is just not to talk about our products or services, not to be, quote, salesy. And that's why I wouldn't say that a Substack should be a substitute for your own blog, because in my world, when I teach people how to blog, I want your blog to be very salesy. I want it to give a
Hmm.
ton of value and also put your services and your offers that are paid in context of that value. And
Yep.
so my strategy wouldn't work on Substack because with my strategy, your content has to be on your own website somehow, where you have ownership and control, because otherwise you're at the whim of a situation where someone might be like, no, that's too much promotion. And I don't want to ever be in that situation or have my students in that situation.
I feel like the way that they're creating this particular marketing and promotion terms of service or terms of use or whatever it is, it's to push people to use the Substack subscription model so they can make money because that's obviously the only way they make money is
Right,
through the subscriptions. They're
right,
not making money on the back end of Julia's health coaching
exactly.
business.
Right,
So this protects their business model.
right,
And
which is great. I mean, they're allowed to do that. But that
right,
to me, it makes it not the right, for some people, it's not going to be a good choice. Go ahead.
it's not the right fit for people in our industry, in the online marketing world where we are selling services or products or coaching or whatever. Like I'm reading this and this screams to me that I wouldn't even be able to use Substack to promote my YouTube videos because those are third-party links.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to use Substack to promote my membership because that's a third-party link that's monetized and they're not making money off of it.
heck yeah.
So there's really like no and the SEO thing, like this is actually something I wanted to bring up earlier and I forgot about. When I go and search for things on Google, Substacks don't come up. I'm
Yeah,
not
you're right. I
seeing
wonder why.
in the search. It's because of the way people name their things. People name their things like, um,
You think Google's suppressing it?
I don't know if Google's suppressing it. I just think it's the way that people name their newsletters.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, they're like,
again, I
mhm.
see these as newsletters, not as I'm just gonna click. I'm on Substack right now. I'm just gonna click. Then I'm gonna click on someone's random thing. So it's Bite Go newsletter. And it says how Amazon S3 stores 350 trillion objects with 11 nines of durability. That's the label. That's the title. How in the world is someone searching for something like that?
Maybe like how Amazon S3 storage works or something like that.
So if I were to go to Google and search for that, how Amazon S3
Storage works.
storage works, it's there are I don't see Amazon or Substacks anywhere. I see Amazon links, I see
Hmm.
Seagate, there's a YouTube video, there's a few blogs, several blogs,
Yeah.
but Substack,
I think when people say I'm using Substack for SEO, they don't mean like you and I we have our roots in Pinterest and
right.
it's gone in and out of favor over the years, but it's always been great. Like I had one client who ended up getting clients for her offers, not because they were finding her on Pinterest, but because they were Googling her thing and finding her Pinterest pins
Mm,
because
yeah,
Pinterest was getting indexed in Google for a long time. And it's gone in and out, right? In this situation, um, I forget what I was saying. Basically, like, oh, I know. I don't think people, maybe they're mistakenly thinking that if they put something on Substack with a good Google SEO, that it will come up in a Google search. And maybe it would if they did a better job with their Google SEO on Substack. But you're right. I mean, I haven't Googled anything. I've Googled things, a lot in the last couple of months, and I haven't seen Substacks coming into the Google feed. So maybe that'll change. Who knows?
yeah.
But point is that I think what they're really saying is they're trying to drive backlinks. So they're saying that when they say I want to use Substack to enhance my SEO,
Mhm.
what they're saying is like let's say that I did a Substack all about Pinterest marketing and I linked to my own blog posts and to my own pages on my website, thinking that that's going to increase my Google domain authority
Mhm.
because there is links from a Substack which has a high domain authority but does it because it's not showing up in the Google searches,
Right.
backlinking to my website. So I think that's what they mean when they say I'm using it for SEO, and I also think that's what they mean in their terms of service. Like they're talking about, they're saying like we don't want you to just fill up your Substack articles with a bunch of backlinks to your own website, I think.
I think I think I also agree with that. Um, yeah, I just don't think it's a good fit for, I don't think it's a good fit for you if you're trying to blog. I think at the end of the day, if you want to have a blog, you should have a blog on a domain that you own with hosting that you pay for.
Exactly. And I want to add something to this. I think a lot of the students who come to me, the health coaches, the self-improvement coaches, the service providers, copywriters, even the web designers, but probably more the coaches now that I think about it. They want to start a Substack because it seems like easier than starting a blog.
Hmm.
And so underneath that, they're worried that a blog is going to be a lot of techie work. It's going to have a lot of formatting. It's going to have to look like a food blog. A lot of my health coaches are intimidated by starting a blog because when they think of a blog, they think of like all those recipe widgets and the ads and all that stuff because they're health coaches and that's what they're used to. When in reality, the way that I teach things is just to have a simple blog on your website that doesn't have any of those bells and whistles because your words are what's going to convert the people who are reading to clients.
Yeah.
So I think when I educate people around that and I say your blog isn't going to be as much of a big, huge, like overwhelming project as you think. It's not going to require massive tech skills. You don't have to design it like a Pinterest girly.
No.
You're just going to use your words to convert. And I really like help them understand that. That's where they start to be like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. Why would I be on Substack where they don't want me to drive traffic to my website? They don't want me to sell my offers. They don't want me to, do all these things. And that's like, there's kind of like three things that I had, like, we don't have to talk about all of them, but like I had talked about in an email that I sent out about this. It was like, these are the things you should think about when you're thinking about whether you should have a Substack. Ownership and control, which we've talked
Mhm.
about. And then the second one is proximity to conversion. Because if your goal is to write have blog posts that are going to sell your offers, it makes sense to just like have that on your website so that someone can click over to your sales page and buy or click to your lead magnet and opt in. rather than having to bring them on that long journey from somewhere where they're hanging out online all the way over to your website. Now, of course, the question comes up, how do we get people to the website to read the blog? And we have, methods for that as well. For example, sharing it and having like a big ecosystem of where you're driving stuff from. Things like Pinterest, things like your socials. Substack could even be one of those things, maybe.
Yeah.
But like proximity to the sale, meaning if your website is just a one-stop shop where people can read your blog and it talks about your product and they're like, oh yeah, I do want that product. And then they click over and buy the product. That's just like a better customer journey, in my opinion, and an easier and shorter one to bring people along than trying to have conversion copy and conversion content on some external, platform. So I think that's part of what I'm thinking about too, is like why, if a blog is not complicated, which I know people need to like get over that
It's
hump that they
really
think it's
not.
complicated, it's really not, then why not have it on your own website? And so I think people really want Substack in a lot of cases just because they think it's going to be easier than having a blog. It's kind of like in the old days, like 10 years ago when we started our businesses, I remember people saying, I don't want a website because it's complicated to maintain. I'm just going to use my Facebook business page as my website. Do you remember that? Or are you not? Maybe, I don't know if maybe
Oh,
I'm
I
dating
remember.
myself.
I'm just rolling my eyes because
I mean, can you imagine? Like at this point,
it's
no one visits Facebook business pages, but
it's
it's sort of
ridiculous.
that same like I'm intimidated by a website or a blog, and so I'm going to take this like easier route. But at the end of the day, it's not really easier because you don't have to be intimidated by a website and a blog. It's
I
not as
feel
complicated
like
as you think it is, and it's going to do better for your business anyway to have it on your
I
own
feel like
website.
you just uncovered and it was sitting there all along. Um, Kind of the crux of this whole thing is people really just want the easy way out.
A
And
shortcut?
I'm gonna tell you right now, and I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but the easy way out almost never leads to profitability and long-term like longevity.
Yeah.
Doing the Instagram Reels strategy, we're seeing people complaining like crazy on threads these days that their Instagram Reels don't get served to their audience.
Yeah.
Just show my Reels to my followers. My followers will buy from me.
Hmm.
You don't actually know that.
Yeah.
You don't actually know that.
Yeah,
They're
people
trying
do.
to show,
They want the shortcut. And at the end of the day, it's like, sorry, but like usually when things are worth doing, when they're going to give you big ROI, there's some work that's required
and it's going to take a while. And yes, you're going to have to learn a lot
and
of
a learning
different
curve.
skills. You are an entrepreneur after all. If you have started your own business to work for yourself, this is not new news. Um, Buckle up, Buttercup, because it's not going to be
Yeah.
easy. And oftentimes, taking the easy way out is not going to lead to success. I don't know how many people have come to me. Heather, I bought this. We don't even hear about it anymore, but that stupid PLR course or whatever that people were buying and then reselling.
Right.
And I don't understand how to get sales to my offers. Well,
Right.
what's your offer? This course I'm selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you create the course? No.
Hmm.
Well, why do people want to buy it then?
Right.
You don't even know why they want to buy it.
Right.
So, like, it's this thought process of like, let me take the easy way out because it seems easy. Substack has a built-in audience, and that seems great. It's the same reason why people start Etsy stores instead of Shopify, because
Mhm.
there is a built-in ecosystem of people there ready to buy from you. But you still have to do the hard work of figuring out how do I write titles for my Etsy products that are going to make people want to buy? What
Mhm.
product can I create that's not going to get ripped off 27,000 times by next week that people
Right.
are actually going to want to buy? Like there is a lot
Right.
of work that goes into this.
And with
And
Substack, I would even argue there's not a group of people who are ready to buy like they are on Etsy. It's a group of people who are ready to consume good content. And
yeah,
that's a few steps behind getting ready to buy, right? Go ahead, sorry.
yeah. Yeah, and I
Hmm.
mean, how do we get them to that step of conversion? Well, generally speaking, getting them to that conversion is through really great high quality content,
Yeah,
long form content. For me, that's video. For you, that's blogging. For your group of coaching students inside of high leverage content, that's blogging.
usually.
And
A few of them have podcasts and YouTube channels, but most of them are bloggers. They're not
yeah,
bloggers, they blog. Excuse me.
yeah, they blog for their
Hmm.
business.
Hmm.
And that ultimately leads to sales of coaching coaching seats or whatever in their group
Right.
coaching programs, one-on-one. Um, yeah,
Right. Yeah. But, if you think about it, one of the reasons why that blogging work that they do leads to sales of their coaching offers, or three of the reasons are they own the platform, so they don't have to worry about being too salesy or losing access to their work or whatever. Because it's on their blog, not a Substack. The proximity to the sale is there. All you have to do when you're reading the blog post is click on the button where it says like join the program, or maybe in the sidebar there's an opt-in, like the proximity to the very next step you want them to take, whether it's to buy or to get into your funnel or whatever, is right there. So again, these are arguments to, have a simple blog on your own website. And Heather, there's two articles of mine, blog posts, that I'm gonna put in the description of this video.
yeah.
One is how to start a coaching blog that fills your client roster.
Okay.
And one is four blogging rules to break to get clients with your blog.
Excellent.
And the first one is like, the steps to take literally to start a coaching blog. So it makes it feel and be much less overwhelming to think about starting a blog on your own website. And then the second one is really about it's four blogging rules to break, but it's basically saying like you're not a blogger. You're a
Mhm.
coach or a service provider with a blog. You're a business provider with a blog. And there's four things in there that you don't need to worry about that you might think you do because you're hearing advice for bloggers, but that
Mhm.
you don't because you're not a blogger. You're a coach or a service provider with a blog. So I think if people are listening and keying into this, those two articles will be really helpful in getting them over this uh, worry that in a lot of ways they're making bigger in their head than it needs to be, that having a blog on their own website is going to be complicated. Um, so just want to say that.
I okay. I want to also just reinforce that the audience that we are speaking to. So if you have come across this video and you're like, I have a Substack and it has 300,000 subscribers and I've been successful so far, this video is
Amazing.
not for you. Amazing. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. Please move along because this particular YouTube live is not for you. Jana and I are speaking to a completely different audience of people that we have been speaking to for almost a decade, which do not operate their businesses on Substack. Substack is fairly new, I feel like, by the way, in the realm of um, shiny tools.
Mm.
I don't know how old it is exactly, but it feels new. I think it's probably at least 7 years old. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
it just had like a resurgence in interest, I think, recently. I think you're right. It had to do with the TikTok drama.
Yeah. I also believe that if you're operating in the online business world, you should just have your own website. And I just want to state that flat out. Like, you should have your own website. You should have your own newsletter. If you want to have your newsletter on Substack, great. You can try that out. You should know that if Substack closes its doors for whatever reason,
Or kicks you off the platform because you're
or
being too
kicks you off the
salesy.
platform, you're like, that door is closed. You've now put eggs in a basket that you don't own. So you have to assume that risk.
Yeah, and
We're
mitigate
all
it by
assuming,
downloading your list.
correct. And we're
Hmm.
all assuming risk throughout. Like, I'm assuming a risk staying with Kit for all of these years. If Kit decided to close tomorrow, which is formerly known as ConvertKit, I'm trying to retrain that in my brain, their new business name.
Yeah.
Um, if they decided to close their doors, they would obviously alert us that we could download our lists before they formally close. And I would hope that a Substack
Well,
situation would be the same.
so Sky, who backs up my website for me
Mhm.
regularly, she also downloads my list once a month from ActiveCampaign.
I should do that. I
Hmm.
do it quarterly.
Yeah. Well, that's fine too. I mean, but yeah, as long as you're doing it regularly. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. Keep going.
I think all in all, you should just have your own thing. And honestly, like, now that I'm thinking about all of my favorite Substackers, um, they do one of two things. They either have not read the terms of service in the marketing and promotion section specifically because they are promoting third-party things. But one of my favorite Substacks has 330,000 subscribers over the course of just shy of a year. Like, she's amassed this many subscribers. Um, I don't think Substack's going to shut her down for being too salesy because they're making a lot of money off of her.
Right. But the
So
point is they have the option.
they do have the option.
They always have the option. It's always the platform can always do that to you.
Would they want to? Probably not. Do they
Right.
have the option? Of course they do.
Right.
Whereas the little smaller fish, which is generally who we're speaking to, are definitely going to be more at risk
Hmm.
of losing their platform because of whatever reason. Substack
Right,
decided this is against their TOS. They're not going to tolerate it.
right.
Um,
Which, which I know you and I are both thinking in a direction right now that doesn't even belong in this video, which is about like people who want to write what they want to write and express their real opinions and not be worried about powerful powers that be that own media companies deciding what they're allowed to write about.
yeah. And that's a big problem in this country, right? Is
It sure is. The Washington Post just made that big announcement this morning about what they're going to be editorializing around and what they're not. So again, we digress. Sorry.
I haven't even read it,
Mm.
but I know who owns the Washington Post and I can assume.
Hmm.
But we're not the Washington Post, right? So at
Hmm.
the end of the day, we're small enough fish that these platforms could be like, you know what? I don't like you anymore. Goodbye.
Hmm. Who owns Substack?
Substack? I don't know.
Interesting.
I do know that there was a big uproar on about it, about within the last 18 months because they don't shut down um, they don't shut down Substacks that promote Nazi ideology. They allow it to be on there because it's freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a large contingent of people on Threads that were really upset by this
Hmm.
and being the platform because of this.
Right.
So you just have to know what's going on. You should make yourself aware. You should read the legal terms of service. A lot of people don't. You should.
Hmm.
And you should just own your own website because at the end of the day, if Substack shuts down, you have content on your own website.
Yeah. And really, I mean, after, 50 minutes of talking about this has been an awesome conversation. It comes down to that for me with my students. If my students say, "Hey, what do you think about a Substack? Should I start a Substack?" Or even not a student, it could be just someone who asks me on Threads because they know I teach how to write a high converting blog. They say, "Oh, cool. Can I have my high converting blog on Substack?"
Hmm.
My answer is Substack does not substitute for your own blog on your own website. If you want to use it as part of your ecosystem, awesome, but don't use it instead of your own blog.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's almost always going to be my answer if I am asking enough questions to give a good, nuanced answer based on someone's particular situation. At the end of that conversation, it's almost always going to be my answer.
Now, there are obviously, and I'm Googling it, there are obviously a lot of people. There's 35 million monthly active users of Substack. 20 million, it
Yeah.
had over 20 million in January of 2025.
Yeah, it
10
could be a
million,
great place to go get visible.
right.
Yeah,
So I think we
I'm
should
not
close this
knocking
out
that.
by just maybe touching on who Substack could be good for.
Mm,
And honestly, in my mind, and the people that I read from, and this is just anecdotal from my experience, who I
hmm.
think it's good for, are people who already have revenue streams who might just want to do something slightly different.
Hmm.
So they have websites, they have newsletters elsewhere. They then went on to start a Substack to maybe find a new creative outlet.
Yeah, it's so funny you said that because my coach just started a Substack. She
As a
already
new
has an income from
outlet.
her coaching business. She coaches me, she has a group coaching program. She's
Hmm.
good, but she wants to explore something new. And so she started a Substack with it. It's a different topic.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's kind of what I had envisioned in my mind about a year and a half ago when I was toying around with the idea of starting a Substack.
Mhm.
I did start a Substack because I wanted to first see what it was like.
Yeah.
Also,
I remember you teaching me about it in the hotel room in Arizona.
I wanted to see what how it behaved,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. I know you love that stuff.
Um, but this isn't like, yeah, I could put my thoughts about business or whatever on there, but I could also just email those to my list. And my list actually really loves those emails because I
Absolutely.
have
Yep.
opted instead of putting them on Substack, sending them to my list.
Well, right. And I mean, oh my God, I could go on for that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. That's
And
exactly it. It's like,
I almost always get like a huge response.
right. So it's like, okay, for me, let's say I decided I'm gonna start a Substack. I'm a writer. Like I love writing. I love blogging. I love writing emails. If I started a Substack, I would start putting things on there on Substack. that normally would have gone out to my email list. And then
Yeah.
why would my email list want to be on my email list?
Why would your email list also want to subscribe to you on
Right,
Substack?
right. So that's where I start, for me, again, it starts to be like, what serves me better? Does it serve me better to have a Substack, or does it serve me better to have my own email list that I send out all of my spicy opinions and my high
Mhm.
leverage hits emails all the time and my sales emails and everything too,
Yeah. So at the end of
Anyway,
the day, I think who this could be good for is a group
yeah,
of
sorry.
people that are already monetized elsewhere, that have time on their hands, that want to do something different.
Or want to add an additional stream of revenue. Like everything's good for them. They're not getting started. They're not trying to get consistent with their revenue. They're already there. And this is something they're going to do that's going to be an additional stream of income.
Yeah,
Hmm.
perfect.
Agree. Agree. I also think it's great for, the content creator model.
Yeah.
Like if you're someone who, doesn't want to be dependent on TikTok, let's say, or your Instagram Reels anymore, and you have come around to wanting to go deeper with people than just TikToks or Reels.
Hmm.
Maybe you decide like I'm going to bring my ideas over to a new platform, and you're not someone who tries to monetize through coaching or products or services. You are a content creator and you do brand deals and you get people paying for, a subscription to your stuff.
Hmm.
That's how you make your money. Substack could be great for someone like that.
Yeah,
People used to use Patreon for that, and maybe there's probably some
they
people
still
that still
do.
do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really big platform that
Yeah.
it's like a it's like Substack but behind a paywall.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to have pretty much you have to have some sort of subscription. I know that you can sign up for Patreons. You can't see anything unless you pay for subscriptions. So I sign up for Jana's Patreon. I'm not going to see anything until I actually pay, and then I get to see whatever level I've signed up for. So
Yeah.
it, yeah.
There's a similarity, but it's
Start
different
your own
too.
blog, folks. Start your
But
own
let's see, who else could
newsletters.
Substack be good for? No, no, really. I honestly think those two models where you're already established and you're just adding an additional stream of income and you love writing, right?
Mhm.
That's one model. And then another model is just you're the pure content creator, like you are a history person who, just that's wants to expand her audience and gets paid by people paying her for her content. So a
And let's be
subscription-based
clear,
model
Heather Cox Richardson does not need Substack. She's got
to pay
paid
her
speaking.
mortgage.
She has like 6 published books.
Hmm.
She still works at Boston College as a historian, a history professor. So
Right.
like she has revenue. She has income. I call it revenue, but she has
Yeah.
income. And
Yeah, her main motivation for being on Substack isn't to make $5 a month from a bunch of people.
no,
Yeah.
no,
So, but good for
that's
someone
where
like that,
she
or
decides
someone
to
who's
write.
maybe not even at that level of success yet, but already has an established business and audience. Trying to think who else it could be good for.
So a lot of the people that I have recently come across that have started Substacks are transitioning out of their jobs. So, a political influencer I've been following for many years was working. She used to work for Chuck Schumer
Mhm.
as his legal counsel. So she's worked on the Hill in and out of Congress. She has worked for, people who are detained in Guantanamo Bay. She's a human
Mhm.
rights attorney. She recently started a Substack, and she was really bad about posting on it for like the first 18 months that she was on there. And then she quit her job and transitioned into like political, like trying to build movements around getting people elected.
Yeah. So she's using it
Started a
as a,
Substack to help her work.
right, as a platform to spread her messages wider. That's her main motivation.
A lot of people I know have done that, have gone that route.
Mhm.
A lot of the people I met at the White
Right.
House when I went there, that is why they're on Substack. That is the exact reason
Right.
they are there.
Right.
And then there are other people, like I've ran across people in the food space who started a Substack instead of a blog, and that's where they share their recipes and things, and they monetize strict like through Substack, and that's what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Again, content creator models, not coaches or service providers. So, because again, I bring it back to my coaches and service providers. If they were to say, like, oh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Something about you were talking about the White House people. Oh, because they might say to me, well, I also want to spread my messages wider. I'm passionate about the things I talk about and do.
Yeah.
So why can't I start a Substack, Jana? My
Yeah.
answer would be like, you can, but all the things we talked about over the last hour make it so that Are you telling me that it's more important to you to have a platform to spread your messages wider than to make money? Like let's ask the hard question. And for most of my students, they need both. They can't just sacrifice the money part just to have the platform.
Bianca brings
They
up a
they
really
need both.
um and this is something that I had thought of, but I forgot about Bianca. So
Mhm.
thank you for bringing this up. She says it could also be good for someone who just enjoys writing and wants to add another social media for visibility reach. And yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I
Right,
think
just
it could
because it's
also
fun, because you
just
like it, you enjoy it.
I think it could also just be a really good outlet for people who want to write but don't necessarily need the money.
Right, exactly.
I would probably consider creating a Substack for um my overseas move had I not already had a website for that.
Yeah,
Like I already have a travel blog. I'm just going to write on there, and that's where I've been writing lately.
right.
And
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, I come at all these conversations that we have from the perspective of I'm assuming the people who watch are watching because they want to learn from us how to do content in Pinterest to make money. And if there are people who are watching that that's not what they want, they just want to, enjoy
they're
themselves and write
probably not.
content, then by all means, like Substack, it would be great for that for sure. That would be another type of person who really might enjoy it and it might
And
help them reach their goals because their goals are just to enjoy their writing.
let's be
Mhm.
honest, if people are watching this channel, they're probably not watching it because they have a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people who follow us want to know how to use,
Yeah.
they want to know how to create content and amplify it with Pinterest often, but other places as well in order to make money for their business, typically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Jana, we've been at this for an hour.
Woo,
I
this was
think
a thick one.
this has been a good, we need more topics like this.
This was thick.
This was
Yeah,
thick.
this is a
And
good
this
one.
is all in thanks to Jana's email turned blog post about whether you should start a Substack. So
Yeah.
Jana, we need more of these, so feel
Hmm.
free to just
What do
schedule them, girl.
what do we have a lot scheduled. What are we talking about next week?
What are we talking about next week? Let me just
Hmm.
go look. You would think I would know because
I know we always do this at the end. We're like, oh shoot, we didn't check to see what we're talking about next week.
I just scheduled 4 weeks of YouTube Live um, social media posts. Like we're
Oh,
talking
right.
about
So
this
you
next
you
week.
think you'd remember, right? But
You
no.
think
But
I'd
no.
remember? Oh, are you giving away too much content for free?
Yeah. Yes. So if
Um,
you've ever thought like, oh my God, am I giving away too much of my content for free? That's what we're going to talk about next week. Yep.
we have a time zone change coming up soon too. I just wanted to remind everyone. Um, time change spring 2025 happens Sunday, March 9th. So we have a little bit of time. We'll have next week normal and then the week after the time for you guys won't change. For me, it will change. So I want to make everyone aware. We do have a time change coming soon.
Yeah.
It will not
So
impact our scheduling
yeah,
here,
we're still going to be here at noon Eastern time every week. It's
but
not right. It just shakes up your world, unfortunately. I'm sorry,
shakes up
but
my world.
not for long.
I know.
You're going to change times with the rest of us when you're in the
I
Netherlands, right?
know. I
How
actually think two,
exciting.
I think Europe's actually 2 weeks behind the United States time changes.
Oh, crap.
I know. So that's even weirder.
You're right, because sometimes it's 5 hours difference and sometimes it's 6 hours. That's right.
Yeah. So, anyways,
That's going to
okay.
be a whole adventure for us.
A whole adventure. Bianca, thank you for telling me how to turn that off. I actually already found it and did it.
Woo!
I really appreciate you being here, and we'll see you all next week.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
All right, you better run. Do you have more meetings?
No, actually, but I got a lot of shit to do, but no more
Oh my
meetings. I was
gosh.